So we found a system where we ask one question of each team member per day.
Is it the same one that you ask everybody?
It's the same one, and it's a rating, I believe, of 1 to 10. We measure sort of 12 key pillars, and each question we ask is a slightly different variant of one of the pillars. And over time, you can build up a really good picture of how each of the pillars are being rated, and you can jump on any issues.
Today, we've got Simon Gardiner. Obviously, you had great growth. What's the future looking like for you now?
So we're looking to...
Welcome to Founder Metrics by Vested, the podcast where we dive into the world of hotshot business leaders and the metrics that drive their game-changing companies forward. I'm your host, Ifti Nasser, CEO and founder of Vested.
Hello, and welcome to Founder Metrics. I'm Ifti, and today we've got Simon Gardiner. Do you want to give us a little bit of intro to yourself?
Yeah, so I co-founded Carrington West, initially alongside James Fernandez. About a year or so after, we were joined by Alex Kerr and Nick Rowe as partners as well. And that was, they joined us they joined us summer 2012. We founded the company in January 2011 from humble beginnings. You know, we bootstrapped the business. We had no prior investment at all. And, you know, we've grown it from a, garage startup, which I'm sure we'll go into, but we started it in a garage literally. And we had fingerless gloves because January's pretty cold and we were trying to type and make calls at the same time, and it was a whirlwind start. But yeah, we've grown to, as you quite rightly said, we've grown to 110 people.
Brilliant.
Each and every one of them goes to war each day for the mission and the shared vision of the business, and we're really proud to be part of it.
Brilliant. So tell me a bit more about that startup time. I mean, you famously in the Express newspaper, I think. Yeah, you started with £500. Tell us more about that and why.
I've seen that one. Yeah.
Why did you do that?
So that article, I think they got the knickers in a twist slightly, but £500 was what we started to pay ourselves a month, but that was after 14 months. So for the first 14 months, personally, we didn't draw a salary at all. Then after 14 months, we finally managed to start paying ourselves £500 a month. Right. We started the business with 10 grand, and we plan to hold fire on actually leaving our previous employer probably another 3 or 4 months. But my business partner, James, went into his end of year review. And, at that particular company, an end-of-year review takes all day to prepare for, and I think he just didn't want to do it. And he walked in and he quit about 3 or 4 months too early, to be honest. I was actually at the cinema that day. It was a Monday. I took a day's leave, came out the cinema, turned on my phone, and it was all hell was breaking loose. Yeah, missed calls, text messages. James, I can't believe James has left. And I'm like, oh my God. But someone had to do something, and to be fair, knowing James, and integrity is a key cornerstone of his character. It runs through our company. It's how we've built it, and he's not going to go into the next 12 months and plan out the next 12 months with his bosses at the time, essentially knowing full well that he's not going to be part of it. No. So we actually left with £10,000, but that was to start the business and to run our own lives. I had a mortgage.
Must have been fun.
Oh, it was a nightmare. I'll be honest, but it was fun. Fun is the word. And you don't know how fun it is until you look back. In the moment, it's really stressful. Yeah. It's probably like running a marathon. In the last mile, you're never going to do it again. But actually, looking back, you think, well, I'm going to book up for next year. It's one of those, and I think that's kind of how I remember it. It was, fond memories. It was in the garage. We literally had, as I said, 2 laptops, our personal laptops, our mobile phones, and no heating essentially. So the summer there was very, very hot. The winter was very, very cold, and we had like a totalizer on the whiteboard of placements we needed to make to get ourselves our own office. And around about month 6 or 7, we built up this residual kind of pot of revenue to be able to pay ourselves a really small salary. And then someone that we used to work with at our previous employer became available. And in the 6 months since we'd left, he left about a year before us. So we hadn't seen him for about 18 months. He went off to do something else. He was looking to get back into the industry, and it seemed like a no-brainer. So we we offered him a role, so we forgave ourselves, any salary, that we had originally planned to pay ourselves. Found a bit more, paid it to him, and for whatever reason, he was almost a completely different person. It just didn't work out.
Oh, dear.
There was real ups and downs, and it was 3 days before Christmas of our first year, so December 11, and there was three of us just sort of sat there, and we were like, look, we have literally run out of money here. We either fold this company and all just go and get jobs, or he moves on and we start again, essentially, and that's kind of what we did.
Can I just hold you there? I mean, we were talking beforehand about the number of recruitment agencies that there are there, and you told me there's some 39 to 40,000
in the UK.
In the UK, that's an incredible number.
Yeah.
What gave you the confidence or the courage?
Naivety.
To think not just one, not just the first time that you'd get into this game as independently, but then when everything had gone so difficultly, first time, do it again.
Yeah. So we didn't start again. We had our our CRM, we had our history. We built up a year's worth of data, a year's worth of effort. But essentially, we were back down to two, and we weren't getting paid. But I think naivety plays a big part. I think it's something that shouldn't be. I think it should be. A founder's naivety is a real secret weapon. I think if we knew what we knew, if we look back, I wouldn't want to do this again. I really don't think I could ever do anything like this again. But the journey is so long and so winding that when you look back, you think, Christ, we've come a long way. And I think, in the employed version of your role, if you go and do something very similar, and I know you're going to, your clients are genuine founders, and maybe they might invent something or they might create something that's never been done. But in my world, a lot of it is just going into the self-employed or building something that you've had the employed version of. You think you know the full life cycle of the operation. You don't know 15% of it. So naivety played a big part, and literally we had no choice. We've created what I call an NFC. The N stands for no, and the C stands for choice. I'll let you decide what the F stands for.
What could that F be?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I give this talk quite often to my local university, the university I went to, Portsmouth, and that really resonates with them. We'd created a no-choice situation where we'd to run our interim contract payroll. We had to guarantee, we were the personal guarantors of about 70k each, which back then obviously was a huge amount of money, especially when you're driving around in a £200 car, which I had after we handed our company cars back.
You're less compliant, no doubt.
Yeah. But the only asset we had that the bank would take were our homes. So we've got our homes on the line. And we're running a interim contract book of interim professionals. Most people set up a recruitment company with permanent fees. You don't have to factor, you don't have to invoice discount. So we had all that risk. We had all and we had the social stigma of, we left the company of 500 people, and they ensured that there were some personalities there that called us a flash in the pan. It won't last. We were scoffed at.
Yeah, they didn't want you to succeed.
They didn't want us to succeed.
You succeeding would create
it would light the way.
Challenge.
It would light the way, and thankfully that company now is they look after their team a lot better. But at the time it was disastrous, and hence us succeeding would have been very, very difficult for them, and it has been. So yeah, we used a bit of carrot, a bit of stick, and we fought on, and we had. It's amazing what you can achieve when you've just got no choice.
Yeah.
To be honest.
But talking about the no choice, at what stage did you realise that you actually were going to make it out? And what was it was it the inventory, the board of customer clients and placements that you'd made? What was it that allowed you to think, we're heads above water?
Well, I don't think we ever stopped thinking. I mean, I'm led by a huge amount of drive to achieve a vision. We work very, very hard on our company-wide vision, but I'm also led by quite a lot of fear. And even on the train on the way up here, I'm thinking, Christ, if imagine if it all went tomorrow. So we never truly, the minute you think you've made it or you're out of the woods, I think complacency sets in and you can start to go backwards.
Without doubt, Simon, I fully agree with you. But I guess there must have been a point, the first point at which you thought, gosh, we're not in daily jeopardy.
Yeah.
We're now in we're over that hump. What was that?
So I think, we've had various offices, let's say, and I think each little milestone for me is when we move into a new space in our building or, we knock a wall down or whatever. And I think we were in sort of, Regis type, week to week kind of offices. After we moved from the garage, we had to change our environment. No one, no one's going to join our company with, still in a garage. And I remember moving into an office which was our first proper lease. It was like 18 seats or whatever. And we moved in and we only had sort of 9 people, 10 people. And I think, God, how are we gonna fill this up, And we've just taken extra space now for 160.
Wow.
And I think, each of those little milestones you kind of look back on, you think, we're on a journey here. Something's happening. But, and I'm sure we'll come on to talk about the vision, but it was really that Christmas 2011 that we actually, pivoted what we were doing. We up to that point, we just let our friend go. We're back down to two of us. He just literally had his first child. It was 3 days before Christmas. Couldn't be much worse. It was a real low point, to be honest. And over that 2 week break, I'll be honest, I was considering, maybe looking for, a job back in recruitment. Is this going to work? Yeah. There's some real self-doubt creeping in. And we'd been planning and we'd been trying to build a recruitment company when actually what attracts the best talent, what attracts the best talent, with experience, what attracts the best raw attributes into our business is to become an attractive place to work. And
that was your pivot.
Exactly. So it took us about a year to work out. Actually, we've been building a recruitment company that, on far less resources, a far newer brand, and we're trying to emulate these recruitment companies that have been doing it for 40 years with £500 million in the bank. We're not going to be able to compete. So what we did is we pivoted to try and become the best place in the UK to work. We wanted to
best place full stop or best place from a recruitment perspective.
So best place full stop was our goal. If you're gonna try and create a great place to work, why not just put the best one? I believe some goals should be achievable. Maybe 10 to 15% of your goals should be fairly unachievable.
Aspirational.
Aspirational. So it's that's what we did. And for the last 11 years, we've been trying to create the best place in the UK to work that happens to be a recruitment company.
Yeah.
So no longer are we looking at, what X, Y, and Z recruitment up the road do or whatever. We're looking at the best employees in the UK, maybe Europe. And we're trying to, ascertain what's good to, take from other businesses, what really makes Carrington West. And in November 2022, as you mentioned in the intro there, we actually did win essentially what is the UK's best employer, the Investors and People Platinum Company of the Year. So only 2,000 companies in the UK have got the platinum status. And if you've got it, you go into an assessment as to who's the best. We won it. We won it on my 40th birthday.
Congratulations again.
So these things is aspirational as they may seem, given a length of time and a drive to achieve it, and having 100 people all pulling in the same direction towards it, and repeating the vision and evangelizing what's going to happen if we do X, Y, and Z, you can actually achieve quite a bit.
So some people would just hold that up as a bit of a trophy. No, I run the best company to work for, but how does that have an impact on day-to-day business, clients, retention of staff? Because I guess you're in a space that's notorious for people moving around. Even you guys,
yeah, exactly,
started life by moving on.
Yeah. So, is it the cause or is it the effects? I'm not too sure, but our retention is usually north of 90% annually.
Wow, compared to industry norms
50% possibly. Right. And especially in the, now, very, very rarely, probably 1 in 10 of our hires have got any experience whatsoever. So if you're looking at, brand new people to the recruitment industry in the first 12 months, the dropout rate's probably, 50%, maybe even more. And we managed to retain 90%. And what that means is, we're not a generalist recruiter. We're a technical recruitment company that specialise solely in the built environment in the UK. Typically, we do bits and bobs in Europe, but typically in the UK, so rail, highways, water,
so infrastructure,
buildings,
utilities.
this sort of thing. And what happens is if you've got someone that's been with you for 7 or 8 years in a really inch wide, mile deep industry, they actually become a stakeholder in that industry that happened again just to be a recruiter. So a lot of our consultants get asked to speak on panels, present at industry bodies. The RTPI, which is the Royal Town Planning Institute, we've sponsored numerous galas and awards, and we speak at their events. Same with the CIHT, which is the Chartered Institute of Hires and Transportation Professionals, rail as well. And that is born out of really looking after the individual team member, knowing what their personal goals are, helping them trying to achieve within reason what they're looking to achieve outside of work, and so that they can intrinsically see that their future and everything they want to achieve is going to be helped by the company.
So that goes back to the whole notion of being the best place to work. It's not just about having a coffee machine and a snooker table or whatever.
Yeah.
It's about looking after the individual's aspirations and supporting that endeavour. That's brilliant. That really is something for, as a takeaway, it's something that I think we certainly try and do at Vested, but it is something I think with your inspiration, I'm going to go back with a doubled up attention to that. Can we just change tracks a little bit, Simon, and just pick up on the fact that, along with that support for your team, you actually seem to give quite a lot back to society. As you were saying, you do the training at the university as well, and you've got your own entrepreneurial program, Level Out, Level Up.
Yep.
You want to tell us about those two?
Yeah. So one actually resulted. It was a result of the other essentially. So I mean, as a business, we do a huge amount with the local community. We sponsor our local university sports teams, all 86 teams. We assist in an organisation called Shaping Portsmouth, which is links between Portsmouth Football Club, the council, and probably 15 or 20 local businesses, including ours. They look at everything from child literacy levels to nutrition to anything which can aid and help the local community and become a better place to live and work. So we're fully invested in that. And myself, I was asked to do 1 or 2 talks at the university. Having graduated from there,
a few years ago.
And as a result, they myself and I think there's about 20 of us now are what they call entrepreneurs in residence.
Yeah.
So I've got a 3-year contract with those guys to help for free, by the way. Pay my parking. Which so I sort of go in maybe once a quarter, do some talks, do some bits and bobs, and I was writing this content and putting this content together, and they found it very, very valuable, and I thought to myself, to go to uni these days, you either need to become, you need to either be from a fairly wealthy family or comfortable with taking on 60K's worth of debt before you've even started. And
the rest.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought to myself, if I'm writing this and it's just sat in my inbox, why can't I, tailor it to individuals that maybe couldn't afford that, and the impact that could have. So the Level Out, Level Up program is started. We're just about to go into sort of like a beta phase, if you like, with Portsmouth City Council. And they're gonna so it's gonna be 6 1-hour sessions covering everything from how to set a vision, how to set goals, how to create a more meaningful network, and maybe avoid a network that's gonna essentially send you down the wrong path. And this is aimed at hopefully I can get the feedback from the local authority next year, looking to take it national.
Wow.
So there's a page on my website.
Will this be online? Yeah.
Well, there's a page on my website now where you can register interest for that, and it's aimed at 2 groups initially. What they call NEET, so not in education, employment or training, of which, believe it or not, there's 900,000 of those guys in the UK now, and that's only going to increase as dark economic clouds seem to be gathering, and young offenders. And the reason for that was because when I was 19, I got caught up in some issues with the law, and it was only my own doing, and I ended up doing some community service, and that although it was fairly minor, it was a real wake up call for me. And I remember actually being on this community service program, and I remember sat there on the sort of lunch break or whatever they did, gave you, and I remember writing down some steps as to how I was going to get myself out of this mess. My parents were angry at me. I'd let myself down, and looking back, they were the first sort of goals that I'd written, although not really realising it at the time. And I'm 40 now, so for 21 years I've been practising my own sort of method of creating a vision, and goals, and making sure that these goals are in your actually in your schedule. And actually, I've read lots of books on it, and I've studied how to better your life with daily intent. But actually, if I can take what's in my mind and what I've done, and I can, try and repurpose some of this content that I'm doing anyway for the university, hopefully,
share it wider.
Exactly that. So, there's also a kind of notion, especially in the UK, where people think that, entrepreneurialism and success, let's call it, is reserved for, people that are, fairly special. People that are maybe privately educated, or extremely intelligent, or already very rich. That's not the case. I'm proof in the pudding on that one.
Great ideas come from lots of different places, and that's a really, thanks for sharing that, by the way, Sam, because you were obviously in a tough place then when you.
It was all my own doing.
It sounds like it was quite a pivotal period.
It was.
Point.
Looking back, probably one of the best things that ever happened, in the long run to me. It was a big wake up call, and I think if I can help other people, out of that, that could have been a really slippery slope one way.
You could have gone
exactly
either way.
Yeah, exactly that. So, but if my experience means that I'm, more validated in the eyes of the people that hopefully will receive this information, hopefully it will, have a good impact.
Well, for want of a better word, you've got cred.
Yeah.
And you've been there, done it, and you've found a way out that is worthy of sharing.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. You talk, just pulling you back for a second, so that stuff that you're doing with the community, I really admire. But you talked about the notion of dark days. At the moment, being in recruitment, it must be a bellwether for how the economy is doing at the moment, and I guess there will be this feeling across the sector. But do you want to give us a feel for what it's looking like out there?
Yeah, so we have started to see, unfortunately, 1 or 2 clients go into administration. With varying degrees of exposure on our part. Which is always really sad, especially, some of the, 1 or 2 of them are, large household names. So there's always that kind of worry. But you are right, recruitment is literally at the very pinpoint of the barometer of what's going to potentially happen, because even down to, if we've got 3 or 4 interviews at one of our clients and there's a management meeting in that client, they can come out that afternoon and cancel those interviews. And you think, right,
that's real time.
Something's happening here in real time, real world. Information's coming through that they don't want to grow further. They're looking to consolidate. In fact, maybe they don't want to replace people. Maybe they're using people that might leave as a bit of welcome shrinkage. What's going on? We also deal with the town planning industry, and many of our clients are local authorities. So that's fairly stable. But the interim town planning market will that is at the absolute pinpoint of the pinpoint, because town planning applications are at the very, very start, just after feasibility of some sort of project. If they start to dip, then our the requirement for interim assistance at a professional level in the planning industry also starts to dip. So there's some movement there as well. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think the past 6 months have still been fairly stable, even though things have, it's certainly not a recession. It's not, dark days necessarily. It's just a bit cloudier than it was last year, let's say.
It's a bit cloudier.
It's a bit cloudier.
I guess what you will also do is you'll be at the, you were talking about the point of the pinpoint, but you actually might be ahead of the curve as well, because it's when the sentiment is more positive, even though the reality hasn't become more positive. People may well be looking to recruit those people who are going to help move the ball forward. Yeah,
that's it. And I think, in the last 2 or 3 years since the pandemic, most of our, especially on the permanent side, permanent placements that we make, most of those have been with SMEs, that almost reflect us. So, most of our best clients reflect us in terms of, values and size and drive. And there's always some aggressive SMEs looking to take market share, so there's always movement there. But even in the past sort of 6 or so months, as it's got a bit cloudier, let's say, the desire of the candidate to come into London 5 days a week, or to go from Manchester to Leeds or whatever, it started to tail off. People understandably want to ring fence their own personal time a bit more, and things have changed. So candidates, even though the market is turned slightly, the candidates aren't willing to do what they used to do in 2017 or 18. So it's still quite difficult for these organisations to identify the people that are willing to do X, Y, and Z themselves. So they still needed agency support because the willingness of the candidates slightly changed.
So when you look at the business now and the health of the business, what are the things that give you the gauge of how things are? I mean, clearly there's the point that you made around the team, the engagement, and the surveys that you do, which will be great to pick up on in a second. But if we can start with the business aspect of it, maybe the financial, what is it that it's your North Star from a business perspective?
So, in tough times during the pandemic, we were looking at average debtor days as a real KPI to look at. We've got a finance director that is excellent. He's got an excellent team there. They work really, really hard to keep our average debtor days to a certain level. But that's obviously result. I drum into my team to almost ignore the result and let's look at the process. So I'm a very process-driven person. We've got other directors in the business that just focus on the result, and that's fine. I look at the metrics at the front end. So I look at the outbound activity of the team. I look at the number of conversions that we're making. I look at ratios of in the recruitment industry, interview to placement's a big ratio. How many interviews are we having to arrange for offers?
So
how many offers?
Data is a big driver for you.
Yeah, it's key. It's absolutely key. And system use, and we use a system called Voyager, which is an excellent system. And those guys are based in Basingstoke. They've got sort of 50,000 users around the world, including Australia and things. And, I'd highly recommend that system as a recruitment specific CRM. And we've got really under the bonnet of that system, and we really look into, the data and the metrics It's all there. But it's like any metric or any system. When you've got 100 users, some are better at it than others, and the data that comes out is only as good as the in the moment effort that to obviously record that data at the front end.
No, yeah. If you've got all those numbers coming in, that data set is just building up and up.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was intrigued about is this the other metric or other gauge that you have, which is around your employees and the surveys. I know many businesses do surveys on a monthly basis or fortnightly. How do you gauge the temperature of the team?
Yeah. So just like that, really, I suppose we used to save it up. Every 6 months we used to survey our team. We used to survey our clients and our candidates. And that's great. And if you do nothing, I suggest doing that to start with. But really, that's a snapshot in time. And once that data is printed, it's almost out of date. Things can move really quickly, especially if you've got a bit of remote working or whatever. Especially after a large engagement event, and we do a few a year, it's obviously going to spike, isn't it? So we've now found a system where we ask one question of each team member per day.
Is it the same one that you ask everybody?
It's the same one, so everyone gets the same one, and it's a rating, I believe, of 1 to 10, and we measure sort of 12 key pillars. Team engagement, quality of the management, et cetera, et cetera. And each question we ask is a slightly different variant of one of the pillars. And over time, you can build up a really good picture of how each of the pillars are being rated, and you can jump on any issues. So
are these usually
totally anonymous. Totally anonymous, which I think's key because I think you get genuine feedback. There's also
But then how do you act on it if it's anonymous? And
so that's the challenge. But generally the trend. So you can see per team. So if one team is obviously rating their management, slightly amber, maybe red, you can kind of jump on any issues there.
So you can see teams, but not individuals.
You can see teams, not individuals. There's also the ability to, like a free text box to just make suggestions. And, we get suggestions from, there's never enough teaspoons to why don't we completely change the way that we look at this particular process and obviously everything in between. Some of our best suggestions have come from that, come from that app. So they can either ask each question, answer each question daily, or they can save them all up to a Friday, whatever. But they're really prompted to keep giving feedback. And I think, the key is to, lots of companies say that they seek feedback, and that's great. Quite often they'll remonstrate with the answer, or they'll stick their head in the sand about it. And it's about really taking, some of the general trends and really jumping on them early. And, essentially, if they're at the coalface and they're doing the do much more than we are, and they come up with a great idea, that's a gift, and we can we can jump on it.
So there's those suggestions for improving the business. There's those suggestions where the business is maybe not doing what it could do from a personal perspective.
Yeah. I mean, we get it all. So we've asked 40,000 questions in the past 12 months. If you add it all up, and some answers are borderline hilarious, and some are really valid. So it's about sifting through what's a knee-jerk reaction and what's a general trend. And I think the whole algorithm can tell you straight away. Yeah,
that's brilliant. I mean, the insights that you get from your own team is brilliant. What about your clients? What sort of feedback do you request or seek from them? So
we survey our clients every 6 months, and they come up with some great suggestions as well. We prompt people to some of our people have been dealing with clients in a personal relationship for 7-8 years now. So that's the beauty of the team retention number as well, because the relationship becomes more honest, and it becomes a relationship where you can ask face to face, you can ask, the awkward questions. How am I doing? How, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the longer a relationship lasts, the more honest feedback you're going to get from your clients. And that's key, because if if someone's willingness to offer some genuine feedback, usually it's what most people are thinking. They just haven't said
And
it.
it's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned also, Sam, that you now take on people who've not got any background in recruitment. Isn't that a risk? Because if all your competitors are poaching from one another, because it sounds like that from the fact that you've got such, within the sector, you have such short longevity. So are you not leaving yourselves exposed? It's going to take 3-6 months to get that person up to speed in the nuts and bolts of the business.
Yeah, so or longer. Sometimes it can take. That's the thing. We're not a hire and fire type of company. When we're setting budgets, we don't really put too much in for the first 3 to 6 months of any new hire, especially if they're fresh out of uni or whatever. What we found, our first 12, 15 hires were just essentially our mates, partly because we knew no different, partly because we were servicing clients and making placements ourselves, and that's more than a full-time job sometimes. And then you've got to run the company, and if you had to do a whole training schedule for someone brand new, it'd just be too much. So we didn't actually have the time or the resources, exactly, to train new people. So our first 15 really set the tone for the business, and pretty much everyone to a person is still there. 10 years later.
That's brilliant.
So they've now become senior managers. And that's really obviously helped, solidify the culture, because, it's from the top down. Mm-hmm. But now we've got the kind of luxury, if you like, to really look for the right people. The wrong person that's got 3 years recruitment experience is and that's the thing, recruitment is essentially pretty simple. People try and overcomplicate it because they're trying to sell you a course for this or a course for that or a video, course, whatever. When actually, really, essentially, it's just being a good middle person between two stakeholders. We've got two customers. Yeah. We've got a candidate that we don't charge at all. It's obviously totally free. And we've got a client. And it's essentially this, of course, there's loads of nuances and there's loads of exactly that. Yeah, exactly. So people try and overcomplicate it, but we look for the right people with the right personal attributes, and we test for it. There's minimum two rounds of interviews, sometimes a third. There's psychometric tests, etc., and there's no right or wrong. We're looking for the right people because it's not an easy job.
Yeah.
You can earn some pretty decent sums of money by the time you're 25, and if it was easy, there'd be a queue of people around the block. And we're obviously the UK's best employer at the moment. We're the best employer in our local community as well. We've been voted the best recruitment company to work for twice. We still find it hard to recruit, and we find it hard to recruit because it's not easy, and we're very, very honest with that. I've got this well-worn speech in both interviews that I do, round 1 and round 2, essentially trying to put them off it, and if they can come through that, they're serious, because it's not easy, and it gets easier. It gets easier in recruitment. There's a strange sort of dichotomy in recruitment, really, where the longer you're there, and the more you're paid, the easier the job gets, which is not always the case, is it? In certain industries, the more difficult and complex the job gets, that's when you start to.
So what are those 2 or 3 things that you look at?
So
interpersonal skills. What is that?
So resilience is the first one. That's absolutely key.
Because you'll get knockbacks
every day. And some of the best recruiters I've seen use the knockbacks as almost like a secret weapon. They go and then create 2 more opportunities as a result, and those people can't be beaten. Resilience, determination, the ability to listen, I think, is absolutely key. If you think about the typical recruiter, you might not think of someone that actually listens necessarily. They talk before they listen, and some of our best people are really quite introverted people. So we do get these, used car salesman type people through the doors, and they're just not gonna. That's not what the clients are looking for. It's not. You're not going to succeed based on that.
Brilliant. So tell me, what's the future looking like? Obviously, you had great growth a track record of growth as a business. Never mind about the success with your with the team. What's the future looking like for you now? What are the big changes?
So we're looking to grow further. We get this question a lot. We get this. I get the question: how much longer are you going to do it for? In my mind, looking back, it's been a hell of a long road. There's been, we sort of spoke off camera just before. My personal life doesn't look anything like it did when I first started. There's been lots of change.
You just had a weekend at Centre Parks.
That sort of tells you all you need to know. But for me, you can look back and think, oh my God, look how far we've come. Or you can look back and think, right, we've built a platform here. We've built a platform that now we can compete nationally. Whereas prior to that, maybe we were, a fairly sort of, more S than M on, when it comes to SME. We were a small company. And now we're a more of a medium-sized company, and we've built a platform, and it would be a huge shame and a huge waste to have spent over a decade building a platform and then, to see someone else score in the last 10 minutes. So really we're looking to grow. Every day I go in, for me, it's day one. We only look back to, there's a bit of reassurance that we're doing the right thing. We're very, very vision based. There's a lot of science in setting a big vision and how it can really sort of, help with the collaboration of the team and drive everyone forward. And we've just extended our office space, which I don't know how many companies in the UK have done that. Maybe we're stupid.
Not too many.
Not too many. No.
6 months, definitely.
No, exactly. So we've just got an extra 60 seats. We've taken down. We've got half of next door's office. They vacated, as quite sensibly they would have done. And we're looking to grow. We want to get to 300 people.
What sort of time horizon?
God, I don't know. We like. Personally, I like 15 to 20% a year is what I like. I think any more, you're starting to really dilute or could potentially dilute the culture. Back in the day, we could double each year without too much stress or strain because of the numbers and the heads were a bit smaller. Any more than sort of 20% growth with such a strong culture really leaves yourself opening up to diluting that culture.
Has to be reinforced quite considerably as you go along.
Exactly.
So what about the threats that are out there then? 39,000 other businesses, everybody's looking at you. You've already, I guess, published the source code. You've told everybody the source of your success.
That's it.
People are going to be copying you.
I think the information's out there. I think where other people struggle is the implementation of the information. Everyone knows how to be a good employer, but unfortunately, fundamentally, some other people just don't understand it. I think fundamentally, especially in recruitment, you'll find people, put themselves ahead of the team. Mm-hmm. You might find they've named the company after themselves, and that's fine, or they're, they fundamentally see themselves as the most important person in the room. Whereas for us, I see myself as I've got 110 bosses. I'm delegated to.
I know that feeling.
more than that, yeah, exactly. And some requests I carry out, some I just ignore. But I'm a. Nick and Alex and Blaine and Gavin and James, all of us in leadership positions, we're in a service-based leadership role.
Yeah.
We lean into the service of the team. We're there as third parties. We've got our customers, of which we've got two stakeholders, clients and candidates, and then the team member. And we don't put any of those. It's a podium of 1-1-1, and then we're third or fourth. So we are essentially leading the team from behind essentially, and we're hopefully helping drive the team forward. We're a member of the team rather than a boss.
Yeah.
But in terms of threats, there's always legislation changes. There's always we've just gone through IR35 over the last 4 or 5 years. First in the public sector than in the private sector. That was messed around with quite a bit.
Does that impact not your team themselves, but the clients and the prospective candidates for those?
So most of what we do, most of our revenue, sort of 70-30 is interim professional, people that we second in.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some excellent people that do that. And there's, depending on which government is in charge at the time, they sometimes look, not very favourably on this kind of working arrangement, when actually there's millions of people that do it. And especially if you're going into a recession, if you're coming out of a recession, organisations want to grow. They want to win projects. Are these green shoots, or is this a full blown recovery?
Cover there.
So to have someone on a week's notice, they might be paid slightly more, but they don't get sick pay, they don't get holiday pay. And they're excellent at what they do. You don't need to train them. You're buying in the expertise to drive the business forward. They can come in and do some, quite strong change management, because they're not going to be there in 6 months' time. Some chancellors, really like them. Some, for whatever reason, try and clip the wings. There's always that challenge, there's societal changes, isn't there? There's how people work, and if there's 10 lads in a room, it's much easier to deal with if there's 100 people that are parents and sometimes grandparents and whatever.
Complexity.
Exactly. So and it's like any community. We're part of a community that most of what we do isn't for ourselves. It's for the community. So we need to make sure that culture and that community is solid at any one point.
Brilliant. So it looks like the future is bright.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
And I seriously, I think the way you've put your team first.
Yep.
And then your clients, and then you, I think is a brilliant philosophy. It's one that I think many founders can learn a huge amount from.
Yeah.
And the things that you look out for that help you gauge whether you're on the right tracks may not just be the pure numbers of dollars or pounds coming in.
Yeah.
So there are the softer issues that people need to pay attention to. Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
And good luck for the future.
Thank you.
Carrington West. Cheers.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Founder Metrics. Remember, even the biggest of ambitions are within your reach when you leverage the right strategies and metrics. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and never miss a future episode. You can visit vested.com, Founder Metrics, for additional resources, articles, and exclusive content. Join our growing community of entrepreneurs and founders by following us on LinkedIn or X. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Together, let's continue to unlock the metrics of success, sharing, and create a brighter future.